Hello and welcome back to Down the Track. Today, our topic of discussion is the impact of West Indian cricketers in the IPL. And who better to discuss this? I have with me a world-renowned sports presenter. She represents ESPN FC, ESPN Cricinfo, the very talented. She's interviewed the who's who of the sporting world, Alexis Nunes. Alexis, how are you doing?
Thank you for having me, man. I was absolutely excited when I heard you wanted to have me on to talk West Indies. I mean, especially West Indians in IPL. I was like, absolutely. Always happy to talk about my West Indians.
Yeah, I mean, they've had such a big impact. Like, if you just look at it individually as well, there's so many performances. But before that, I just wanted to ask something about yourself as well. Like, how did you start this career in sports presenting? You're covering cricket and football, which is a dream for people like me and a lot of people. Before, it must have been really challenging. It's not as popular as it is now. So can you just tell us a bit about how you started and your work, basically?
Sure, yeah, definitely. I mean, to be honest, like I think there was only up to a certain point that I felt like I wanted to be a vet because I love animals. But I always have loved sports, not necessarily being in sports because I'm not the most athletic person you would meet. I'm from Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica. So everybody's like in track and field, everybody assumes that you can run fast. Not me. That gene clearly bypassed me, my family at least. But my dad always was the one that was watching sports. He always used to have this one rule that, like, whenever we're eating dinner, we eat as a family. Everyone sits around the table at the same time, and he's like the boss. So, of course, we did it. And he always had control of the television. So he would always change whatever was on to, he'd always say, sit down and watch something with sense. And it was like me and my two other brothers, Alejandro and Roland, and we would sit down, be watching, and he'd either change it to golf or to cricket or, obviously football, track and field, obviously, if it was on as well. We used to even watch like WWE wrestling, like late night cage fighting between like Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan when they would build the
Wow.
cages before we even knew that wrestling was all an act. But yeah, my dad is honestly who I suppose started the love for me. And after a while, I realized it was me, the one that was staying up to watch, all of like West Indies tours overseas with him. Slowly, little by little, he would go to bed earlier because, he'd leave me watching. And then when I'd go to bed, he would just be like, what was the score last night? Or what did he leave it at? Well, test cricket, of course, because test cricket is king in my household. And dad was not bothered with the one day or the T20 stuff. To be fair, there wasn't even really T20 going on back then. This is when I was a kid. So yeah, that's literally how the love for it started. And I just ended up, I always knew I wanted to do something in the media industry. I used to love like film and cinematography. And, I used to make like little short films on my computer. And I just studied media and communication at the University of the West Indies in Jamaica. And I did broadcast journalism, and every like basically SBA or any like final project that we had to do or end of year projects, I just did my pieces on sports. Like everyone was doing some serious like investigative journalism pieces, and I was like doing like an expose on squash in Jamaica and cricket. I did something on like the West Indies too for one of my things, that everyone had like these deep sociological, societal stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm just doing about like one of the West Indies tours. So, and from there, I got my first job at Sportsmax, which I was thankful to get it. Honestly, maybe about 6 months later, there was an audition they specifically wanted a woman to kind of read some updates for this new channel this new sports program that they were bringing out. It was like a sports talk show. And yeah, and I just went on, and I got the audition right, thankfully. And I was there for 3 years, almost 4 years. And I got the audition at ESPN through an agent. And yeah, I've been at ESPN ever since.
That's amazing. And like, you're covering both sports, cricket and football. Do you have a favorite? Like, and how do you balance the two sports? Because I mean, I love both of them as well. So like, how do you balance like watching both sports?
Honestly, I always get asked this question too, and it's so hard to choose one because I feel like, for example, when I'm doing all cricket, because now it's like day to day, it's a bit of both. So I always do actually get to marry the two happily. It's like having two husbands or something. Not saying that's what I promote, but it is like at least we all live in one happy family. But then whenever, for example, if it's Cricket World Cup time, I know, like when we did Cricket World Cup, parts of me, I was just like even missing football because that was 2 straight months of cricket, which was fabulous. But like any little football conversation we could squeeze in, I was like there. I was like, yeah, let's talk about football. But then it's the same thing like with football. If I'm doing just a long period of football and I come home from a match and I sit down and there's the cricket on, I'm like, oh, thank God, something else to watch. It's like I miss both. I honestly cannot choose. I feel like cricket draws me more to my dad because that's something he like literally was always on, and that was something that I constantly asked him about. I feel like football is kind of like, I mean, football's football. It's a beautiful game. It's almost like the world sport. I feel like anywhere you go in the world, you will find them at least knowing something about football. So that was always just on my own. And I was the one that actually started watching football more religiously than, say, my dad. Like, my dad didn't really have a team or anything. He just watched like the big games when they would come around, World Cup, etc., Euros, Gold Cup, at least because we were in CONCACAF. Or World Cup qualifiers as well. But I was the one that was like watching Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, everything. But cricket, he was always on. So cricket, I think, has more of a sentimental feeling for me. But then football was kind of like the love that I discovered on my own too. So I feel like I can't live without either. I think they both just make up who I am today.
Yeah, it's like you're talking. I mean, I'm talking into a mirror because I can totally relate. For me, I think football is more because of friends and stuff, and cricket because of my dad. So I completely relate. Yeah, I completely relate with that. And just about you seem so confident and so calm. Do you ever get nervous? And what was your like favorite interview? Like before an interview, do you ever get nervous?
Oh yeah, plenty of times. Honestly, not so much anymore.
Yeah, experience.
After a while, yeah, you do get used to it. And after a while, you do treat these athletes as just kind of any other person, unless it's like, and I mean, this is all respect to all athletes, but unless it's someone that genuinely has a deep sentimental feeling for you. Like, I'll give you an example. My dog, who's like sleeping on the couch somewhere behind me, he might pop out at some point. His name is Zlatan. So Zlatan Ibrahimovic is one of my favorite players. And I remember when I had to interview him, and I knew from like 3 weeks in advance, everything. But that night, the night before I got to interview him, I could not sleep. I was like wide awake. I was just I didn't even know what to expect. Even there, I was like, my hand was shaking. I remember I was holding my cue cards and my hands were like, oh my gosh. But also Zlatan's quite intimidating as well. But he was absolutely brilliant. He was so good to me. Honestly, he was one of my best top favorite interviews easily. But now, no, I think it's good. And I think that the athletes as well, they more appreciate it when you do treat them normally. Like you do treat them. My interviews tend to be like really conversational, a lot of banter. I always tell people, obviously, I'm not, especially us at ESPN, we're not a tabloid magazine. I don't care if you had McDonald's last night and you're an athlete, like by all means have McDonald's if you want, so we keep it like super casual, and that's what, you have to feel like you're talking to someone, not just reading questions off a paper, because then I think that cuts out the any like emotional or personal connection you can make with them. And people who are watching pick up on that. They can tell when you're just like a robot fielding questions. So I don't necessarily get like nervous anymore, but I think certain people probably would get me nervous. I've yet to meet Sir Alex Ferguson. Wow. And as a Man United fan, he's the be all end all. And I think that if I do meet him, that's probably one that I would be up all night going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Or like just wondering.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's like really, I mean, it's really great to hear that. And moving on, let's talk about the West Indies. So I don't know what it is with you guys, but every format, Test cricket, one day cricket, and T20 cricket, you pick it up so quickly, whether it was like in the 70s, the fast bowling, the aggressive batting with Viv Richards and the ODIs, and now the versatility with Gale, Pollard, and Russell and the like. So how do you guys pick up the game so fast? Is it just natural or what is it?
Do you know what? Honestly, I always like wonder this myself, because now when you just think West Indies cricket, you just think T20 as well. Yeah. And you almost expect T20 to be our strong. Also, the fact that we won the World T20 twice, I think that in a sense had a lot to do with it. There is probably people can say that there's a physical attributes. Obviously people from the Caribbean are well built. They're quite athletic and big, built for like power hitting, and that kind of style, I suppose. But then I think obviously in my time of West Indies cricket, unfortunately it wasn't the time of, say, like my dad watching when we were world beaters. For us it was good though, because when I started watching it, like even the likes of Brian Lara and stuff were still playing. So I still did get to see towards the back end of their careers, some top quality legends that you would call. But then obviously it kind of took like a downturn. We'd have great performances here and there, but nothing consistent like the old West Indian teams, And I think that when we won the World T20 the first time in 2012, that was like, I think that change that came at such a downtime in West Indies cricket where so many things were going wrong in terms of the board had massive fallouts with players. There was like not enough unity. People were not hopeful of anything in West Indies cricket. There's so many people that I know that are normally cricket fans, or at least in Jamaica, and fair play, Jamaica is slightly different because cricket now is probably our third most popular sport.
Wow.
In the sense that you've got football, you've got track and field. Obviously, Jamaicans were the best in that, and then cricket. Whereas you go somewhere like Barbados, Guyana, Trinidad, cricket is their bread and butter there. That's like always number one for them. And so cricket, at least in Jamaica, I know so many people that didn't even watch that final. Because here West Indies were all the way in the final, but even then they still didn't expect us to win. To be honest, I didn't really either. And I think that after we won that one, it brought a new sense of, maybe we can make this format of cricket our own. And then, of course, we won it again. And then the ladies won it as well. It was like...
Yeah, that was crazy.
That, I think, had a massive impact, because then everyone was like, right, well, I think this is us. This is our thing now. And there was obviously the early days of, the West Indians picking up success in the IPL too. So I'm sure there's some physical attributes there, but I think now it's a lot of mentality wise, because even just talking to some of the younger cricketers, and obviously I cover our regional tournaments, back in the Caribbean, and for better or for worse, like for example, I cover the Super 50, which is our domestic 50 over competition. And you see how the young batsmen tend to go about building their innings. And it's like, once you get to 15 or 20, it's like, let's beat some ball. And I know it drives me crazy as somebody who loves the longer formats of the game. And then, I get to do the broadcast alongside the likes of Jeff DeJean and, Sir Curtly Ambrose, Cuddy Walsh. So it drives them even crazier, because 20 is not a score it's barely even a score in T20 cricket now, much less one-day cricket. And then, of course, for everyone, you try to do the best in test and assume everything else will come easier after. So, but I see how they go about it. And that is the IPL World T20 effect. That's the side effects that we've had to kind of deal with. I think in their heads, it's that we know we can do this and we know we can do this well. And I think now it's just instilled in them to be these ball beaters almost. And it has its good sides, obviously, i.e. the impact that West Indians have had in the IPL, but it also has had its really bad sides, which is how I see is kind of affected our performances in the longer formats of the game, which to me, like I keep saying, is still king for me.
Yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree. But, it's also a matter of timing as well. Now the World T20 World Cup is coming. If West Indies do well, everyone's going to praise them. But and then, teams like India might get criticized if they don't do well in the T20. But one thing that the West Indians do, which I really appreciate, even though, I'm a big lover of Test cricket, but their players play in all leagues around the world. And I think that helps a lot as well, playing with different people, different situations, different conditions, so they can adapt quicker, I feel, compared to other players around the world.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. The fact that they do always, wherever there's a T20 league, you'll find a West Indian, and so many people that a lot of West Indians even play in the GT20 in Canada and whatnot, that probably would not, you're not going to expect, hopefully one day, but you're not expecting like Virat Kohli to go there now, kind of thing. But they do go all the way out. And that's the thing that trickles down to the grassroots of cricket, where people realize that they could go play in these tournaments, these little T20 tournaments that go on, you know, all around the world, and even like T10 and all of that now. That's everyone's deviating from the original format. But they go and they do it, and they're always open to it. And I think, again, that has a good side and a bad side. The good side being that, like you said, it gives us the success in franchise cricket and makes West Indians some of the most coveted for that format. But also, I mean, just like how India don't allow, you know, their players to play like, say, CPL, etc., so that they're always available for selection when there's international tours. We've seen how the West Indies itself has had to send, call it like B teams, you know, or makeshift teams. And we're constantly, not constantly, but we have been in the past, you know, without the likes of Chris Gayles and Dwayne Bravos and Andre Russells and stuff, because it's, you know, you're not going to get the big stars, which is sad, because we see that that has also hurt West Indies internationally, so to speak. But it's a balance. I think that, like I said, it's got good sides and bad sides. I think that's just the way how our cricket is now. I think with the new board and whatnot for Cricket West Indies, they have tried to find a happy medium, because as you can see, a lot of the stars still have come back and made themselves available for international tours. Karen Pollard being back, you know, as captain of the T20 and one-day teams. That's absolutely brilliant to have him back as well. So there's a good and a bad with everything. But of course, in true West Indies style, we take it to the extremes either way. And, you know, we've reaped some good results, but I think it's also hurt us in some ways too.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned GT20. That's actually the first tournament that I ever covered. I was there. And one thing that I really noticed, you talked about mentality as well, right? You know, West Indians are known to be a bit like chilled out, relaxed on the field. But they have the switch on as well. They take like even those leagues seriously when they need to, like, you know, when they would need to win the game, you suddenly see that thing. So that balance, you don't really see it in all teams, because everyone is serious on the field, and off the field, they can relax. But the fact that they enjoy their cricket, it makes it more watchable for the viewers as well. And that's why they have so many fans in India and Pakistan and so many places around the world.
Yeah, see, one thing that we're never short of, you know, in the Caribbean is personalities. Like, we love big personalities. I mean, I know I have a massive personality, and I feel like we're not afraid to show that. You know, everybody assumes that because you're in the limelight, you have to be almost like clean cut, perfect. But we do have a way of bringing that, you know, that West Indian swagger, I suppose, to cricket and to the game, which honestly is something that I think cricket of all sports needs. Like, you know, you see it in football, you see it in NFL, you see it in, you know, baseball, how they can celebrate these wild ways. And then in cricket, you almost still expect it to be like, oh, well done. It's like, no, you know, I live for Imran Tahir celebrations where he's like running around the place, and he probably like runs back to South Africa and back just to, you know, by the time he's done, I love that, you know. And I think it is that West Indian style swagger that has helped the game so much. And it's true, I think it comes from a lot of passion, because the boys really, you can see when they play with it, it makes you enjoy it more. Yeah. You know, it makes it more, like I keep saying, even with my interviews, you know, you show that personality, you know, because everyone gets this media training and all of that, and that zaps some of the great personalities that a lot of these athletes have. And I think that that's one thing that we do so well. And that is just bring that kind of swagger to cricket that the sport overall just has been crying for. And I think that you could see, especially how in the IPL, the way they go about things and just showcasing things, whether it's with the big lights, the flashy jerseys. I know everybody criticizes them, but I love them. You know, it's something that we don't get in international cricket. And I think it's something that should be celebrated, especially if we're trying to keep marketing cricket as one of the top sports in the world.
Yeah, no, 100%. Really, really well said. I completely agree with that. And if you actually look at the IPL performances, you know, everyone talks about Chris Gayle. He has the highest individual score. Pollard's won like 5 championships. Russell has the highest strike rate. He's won crazy games. Narayan's won 2 championships. But then there are West Indians as well who go under the radar, who have won the title as well. The likes of, you know, Lendl Simmons, Evan Lewis. Can you talk a bit about them? And it just shows that there's quality all around in this country, and they just and they played vital roles. So yeah, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, oh my goodness, it's so funny you bring up Lendl Simmons. Like, he's someone that you could put on any T20 team right now, and I just think he's gonna smash it either way. And you know, he comes from, there was a time in the Caribbean that there were some talks, because Trinidad and Tobago had such a solid, still do actually have such a solid T20 team, to the point that they were saying that TNT could probably now, just like how I know good friend of mine, but I know he likes stirring the pot, Michael Vaughan, now that he keeps putting up saying that he believes that Mumbai could probably take on India as a whole collective in T20s and beat them. That's what it was in the Caribbean, that Trinidad and Tobago's T20 team could have probably taken on the West Indies T20 team and beat them, because, you know, you had all those stars of like Bravo, you had Pollard, you had Simo, you had Narayan. I mean, the list like just kept going on. And, you know, they're absolutely, it's crazy that you think of, you know, the I guess the impact that they have had so much, and even going now too, like if it's one that I had to choose to pick to watch right now, and I know it's probably nothing new, but every time I see him go out there, I just keep saying to myself, God, he's going to be something special. If he stays on the right path, yes, take a guess.
Nicholas Puran?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Honestly, and I've been watching, I call him a kid and he's only like a few years younger than me. But you know what I mean? I've been watching him since he was like a proper kid, like in local cricket in the Caribbean. And just the levels, and not just the level, but he embodies that swagger, that confidence in yourself, that a la Chris Gayles, that when you go out there, you're like, I don't care if it's, you know, Bumrah bowling at me, I'ma still smack you, you know, like it's that kind of stuff. And to have that so young and let it, you know, find that balance with, you know, with being confident, but not being too, you know, arrogant and overestimating or underestimating rather your team, your opponents rather, you know, I think he's definitely something special to absolutely watch. And I'm very excited to see where he'll be, you know, either by the end of this year or, you know, by the end of next year as well.
Yeah, I was actually good. That was going to be my question. You answered it like perfectly. Also, I just wanted to ask like about Pollard. Russell's going through this now, but Pollard a few years ago, if you remember, in the Mumbai Indians, he was struggling on the pitch. He wasn't getting the performances. People were saying that they should replace him in the next auction. But the Mumbai Indians came in that auction and they stuck with him. And now they're reaping the rewards. He filled in as captain as well. Some brilliant performance with bat and ball. And now Russell's going through that period as well. With the KKR last season, didn't have the best season. How important is this relationship between club and player, and do you think, you know, how would you look at this situation?
I mean, well, I know two of them quite well. I know Andre, obviously being Jamaican, a bit more than Polly. But I remember I was in India. I actually covered, because for Cricinfo, I would always fly out for the 6 weeks to cover IPL in India. And I would always come back 7 pounds heavier because I ate all the food. Love the food. But anyways, too much biryani, but I regret nothing.
Hyderabad has the best biryani.
I've yet to go to Hyderabad. I need to go. Honestly.
I'm from there. That's why I'm saying that. But yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. I need to try then, because I've only been to Bangalore. We have offices, the Cricinfo offices are either in Bangalore or in Mumbai. So first time I went was in Bangalore, and then the last 2 times has been Mumbai. So, but yeah, I remember it was that specific time that I went. And obviously when I get there, we always tend to do extra stuff on West Indians, given the fact that I'm there. And the amount of like heat I had to cop, because everyone was like, oh, Alexis, your boy Polly, I don't know, he's not looking good. And then when people were like, the audacity that they've made him fill in as captain, you know. And I think someone like Kieron Pollard, I always say that we think of these phrases, and I always say that they're so cliche to use them, but they really do apply to certain people. The whole saying of, you know, form is temporary, class is permanent. And Kieron Pollard is a born, proven winner, however you want to put it. You know, he is a class cricketer. He's world class. He has been there. And he's one of those that's like a Chris Gayles, where it's like, forget whatever injury they're on. You don't need to pep talk them. They just need themselves there, and they know how to handle themselves. And, you know, from a couple of even the other guys, West Indian guys that were on Mumbai, as well as, you know, some of the others that aren't, they just said what people don't see is the effect someone like Kieron Pollard has in the dressing room. Like he's constantly talking to you. So even if he's getting out for duck, even if he's not picking up any wickets, he's behind you and constantly coaching you inside, you know, the dressing room, back at the hotel room. And he keeps the morale of the team high. And it's important because there's only so much that your actual head coach can do when they're sat in the dugout, you know, but Polly's out there and he's there with you. And you know, the IPL, when you're there with gazillions of people watching, it can be such a daunting place. And I think that it sounds great to say it now, but never a doubt. I never doubted that Polly was going to come back. And literally all I have to say is I actually did not even know that he would come all this way back to even having the effect that he is having in our international setup in terms of being, named captain. But I was absolutely in no doubt there. And I say props to Mumbai for sticking with him and showing faith in him, because whether it's football or cricket, one of the number one things that people have told me, especially athletes, is that people tend to underestimate the effect of good man management, and you have to know how to manage your players. And I think that that's something Andre Russell, Dre Russ, man, oh goodness me, every time he gets injured, I want to like cut my leg or my rib or my arm off and give him, because he's one of the hardest working people I know. Like, he constantly is on his routine, even when he is not like probably supposed to be. He is one of the hardest working people I have ever met, period. He is a man on a mission always. And it's unfortunate that obviously certain injuries have plagued him, and everyone again is coming on going, oh, he's on his last leg, la, 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 la. But you know what? Everyone said that about Polly. A lot of people said that about Chris Gayles when Bangalore, didn't pick him up again. And then
he's killing it.
Look at him now.
Yeah.
He's absolutely killing it. It's certain people, like I said, that old cliche saying of form is temporary, class is permanent applies to them. And they only just need themselves. If they can stay fit and healthy, and then if they can just get the backing from obviously their clubs and management, just like how Mumbai, showed Karen Pollard. Polly could be 50. He could be 60. Would I still put him on my team? Absolutely. Chris Gayles could be 50. He's one of those that you reach for. You would take Cristiano Ronaldo now on your team, even though he's well over 30, than half of the 20-somethings that are playing out there right now. I mean, it's like one of those, because these are people that have the perfect balance. Of course, the physical may not be there of a 20-year-old, but the mentality. And so many cricketers and footballers have told me that you have to win the game up here first before you can win it anywhere else. And I think that that's something that they have, the experience. And that's absolutely, you can't put a price on that.
Yeah, like you have to be physically fit, but mentally it's a huge thing as well. It's a mental game. Yeah, I agree with that. You covered those guys. I just want to ask you then, who are you supporting? Who's your favorite IPL team, and who do you think will win this year? And does that team have a West Indian?
Do you know what? So my favorite IPL team, so this is way back when, from one of the early editions of IPL, and I was still on the show in the Caribbean, and we all had to choose a team. And you know what? I stuck with my team, and they genuinely break my heart so much, more than any of my ex-boyfriends did. And it is none other than Royal Challengers Bangalore. Honestly, Bangalore can take me so high, but leave me so low as well. I mean, so obviously I started supporting Bangalore because of Chris Gayles. I remember we were all on the set choosing, and a couple of people went for Mumbai, etc., etc. And I was like, I'll just go with Bangalore. And then it so happened that I always joke, because now, a few years later after that, probably 5 years later, the first place that I go to in India is Bangalore. So I was like, it was meant to be. And I mean, I love those little cheesy kind of signs, so to speak. And I always go, oh, it's meant to be. So even though Bangalore, oh my goodness, broke my heart so many times. But I mean, they came all right last time around, so... Yeah. But it's crazy, because sometimes Bangalore leave me wondering. You could look at them, even when they had Chris Gayles, but they had Chris, they had AB de Villiers, they had Virat. Let's be honest, it could be Virat against anybody, and I'm like, Virat's gonna win. And
a season where Virat hit 800 runs, they still lost. It was the season of his life. Him, Gayles, de Villiers were on fire.
And it's not just losing, but losing spectacularly. I always say this too. I watch tennis a lot, and Serena Williams is my favorite. And I always have this saying too, that when she wins, she obviously, you pick her to win anyone, but when she loses, it's almost like she beats her own self up. It's a spectacular self-destruction. And I think that's what applies for Bangalore. It's like, when it's their day, and you can tell it could be unstoppable. But then they just need like one thing to go wrong, and it's like self-destruction, like near relegation. Basically, it's like if they had a relegation, but it's like if this were like Premier League, they would have been relegated so many times. I'd probably feel like how Brighton and Newcastle and the rest of them are feeling now. But then you'd look on your team, but it's like, imagine Brighton and Newcastle and Fulham having
Bruno and stuff,
Virat Kohli and AB de Villiers and Chris Gale in the past, and all these players, and you're wondering, it doesn't make sense. What's going on? So as you can see, Bangalore take my heart every season and like ring it around and go like, we love you, but we don't. But you know what? I've spent how many years in, and I'm sticking with them. I absolutely love RCB.
So they're gonna win this season, according to you.
Listen, I've been through enough stress with them to know to never say that. At this point, I just go there and I take it match by match, and I keep like a glass of wine beside me just for everything. I'm always like, oh God, what now? So I hope so though, because like I said, last time out, they definitely impressed me. I wasn't expecting that much, but they did a lot better than the stress that I was expecting to have. And granted, it was a crazy year, obviously, with the pandemic, but I'm hoping some of that momentum could stick, and I'm hoping for some good stuff this year. Crossing everything.
I'm going with Sunrisers. That's my team, but I'm hoping Jason Holder with the purple cap and orange cap. And to be honest, last season he got them into the playoffs. They had so many injuries, and both with ball and bat. Everyone talked about him as a Test cricketer, but he just showed what he can do in this format.
I think Jason is, honestly, if I had to choose right now, probably the most underrated West Indian cricketer just in the world, like in all formats. I would think it's just Jason. I think I know Jason very well. Like he's a great friend of mine. I've known him for, ages, from even before he became West Indies captain, Jason Holder, and then obviously now. But he has such a good head on him. And like I said, that mental aspect is so important. And I think that, because I just think he's so unbelievably underrated, because even now, for example, you saw what he did, obviously IPL, and then he went on to Big Bash and did big things there too, temporarily. And now it's almost like we don't talk about that enough, or we don't give it the respect that I think he deserves. And I think Jason is an unbelievably capable cricketer in all formats, to be honest. He's such a hard worker as well, such a great student of the craft, and I think that he definitely is an asset to any team you put him on. And I hope it continues, because like I said, I think he's probably the most underrated West Indian cricketer right now in all formats.
Wow, amazing. And just before we wrap up, two quick questions. You can answer them as quick as you want. One is your favorite performance by a West Indian in the IPL. I can help you out with Gayles' performance 175. You have Bravo, Pollard. You have a lot of performances, but if you could just pick one.
Honestly, I mean, you just said it though. Christopher Henry Gale, 175. Are you kidding me? Against Pune? I watched that match.
You were there?
No, I wasn't in India because I was still like quite young when that happened. But I remember watching it and I was like, this should be illegal. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, that's probably why I had such high expectations for RCB after that. I was like, oh yeah, well, if he's hitting this, Virat could hit this, AB could hit this, hit our way to the title. But I mean, I think when you think of it now, and I only know like the stats straight off again because we're doing a feature on ESPN Cricinfo, we actually have to chat with Chris Gale later on tonight about the specific innings, because we're ranking amazing performances in the IPL by West Indians, and obviously this one I think tops our list. So we're just gonna ask him a little stuff about it. But I mean, I think it was some like unbelievable like figures of, he had like 154 of that 175 runs came from boundaries solely. Only 21 runs like came from like singles and whatnot. I mean, that is outrageous. Like, how do you even think to bowl to that? I would have been like, no, please put me away. Please put me away. I think that was Chris Gale at his absolute best, his absolute destructive and most destructive. And it's an innings that I never, ever, ever will get tired of watching. Yeah. I'd love to see him do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, not now because he's not in Bangalore, but As long as it's not against RCB.
Yeah, absolutely. And last question. This is a very tough question, unless you've already answered it before. It's a very tough question. I'm going to give you two options. You have to choose one. All right. You have a ticket to the Champions League final where Manchester United is taking on Liverpool. And at the same time, the different venue, West Indies is taking on England in the World Cup 50 over final. Where do you go?
Oh, geez. Oh, geez. Oh, geez. Oh, God. I'm going to go with West Indies taking on England.
I like
because,
that.
I mean, obviously, I love Man United. I've shed blood for them. I have them tattooed to me. Everybody knows that. But at the end of the day, I mean, you can't choose where you're from. And, you know, the West Indies is obviously like where I'm from. It hits different. It hits differently because at the end of the day, Man United's great. They're fabulous. I mean, obviously, I love them. But the West Indies, like, that's your people. You know, that's literally your people. Sorry to sound cheesy, but you're all kind of one, and you're there because Man United, or like just like franchise, you know, cricket as well. It's beautiful because it's a bunch of players from around the world, you know, all for one common cause. But you know, you can always hope that money can buy you a brilliant team. Whereas, you know, you're from where you're from. You know, you have to play with what you've got, and that's why I think it makes it sweeter for those kind of wins. Because, you know, it's not necessarily the glitzy glam. It's just literal homegrown talent that can get you that far. And I think obviously seeing the West Indies flag, you know, raised high whenever is such a good thing, because we're obviously in a unique setup given the fact that we're different countries. And, you know, a lot of people like to think that, oh, we're the same culture, but we're absolutely not. You know, like Trinidad has a different culture from Jamaica, from Barbados, Guyana, St. Kitts, etc. But the fact that we still can, you know, come together and unite for this kind of cause, and there's nothing else really like it, you know, in sports, I guess, apart from if, you know, at the Olympics when England and Scotland and obviously Northern Ireland all have like Team GB. Yeah. But it's such a unique thing, and I know there's been so many talks about in the past about whether they should do away with that, you know, and let every country have their own identity. Especially when Trinidad supplies so many great cricketers. But I think it's something beautiful to keep. Obviously, with everything, there's a good and a bad. But I think there's Latan shaking in the background. But I think it's, yeah, I would choose a West Indies big win in a World Cup final, honestly, over a Man United Champions League win.
Wow, you know, I agree with that as well. It was a pleasure having you, Alexis. Great insights about West Indies cricket, about their impact in the IPL, and it was just a great chat. Thank you so much for coming on. We have a lot of things in common: Man United, cricket. The only thing is the RCB thing. We need to chat about that. But apart from that, but
I can't blame you. You have to support. You have to
where
support
you're from.
Hyderabad.
Yeah, where you're from.
Yeah, like I said, you have to support where you're from. You can't choose where you're from, so you got to go with the good and the bad.
Yeah,
at least you can choose Man United, but now it's been hard.
Yeah, with that, on a happy note, let's hope this bang in 4-5 goals today against Granada in the Europa League. Best of luck for that game.
I'm hoping so. I'm going for McTominay hat trick.
McTominay hat trick, I like that. Thank you. Thank you. So I saw that interview as well. Make sure our followers as well watch that interview with Alexis and McTominay. That's a crazy interview. But thank you so much for joining me, and hope to catch you soon. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the IPL and the football.
Yes, thank you. I'll happily come back anytime.
For sure. Take care.